But dude, this is scary right here too with this idea like that the world population is growing that fast. Because
I've actually heard
some
a
people
lot of
worry
people say
about
it's
this
not.
overpopulation.
Well,
shit.
from 5 million to 1 billion, it was 9,800 years. And then in the since 220 years, we've gone from 1 billion to like 8 billion or 7 billion. So it's like, yeah, I can see huge exponential growth.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of things to explain that. I mean, but what I've heard a lot of people say that like they were seeing projections that say it's going to like peak around like 9 billion.
Yeah.
And that, well, specifically in modern countries, it's actually becoming a problem because developing countries are having very positive population growth, which is interesting. But then modernized civilizations are having a negative population. And so, like, especially like Japan, like I hear that Japan is having a really hard time with this because they're about to run out of old people, essentially. Like, all their old people are going to die off, and then they're just going to be, like, there's going to be a gap in between, like, generations, I guess, because they're not making enough babies. And this is something that's been shown, like, as a society becomes more wealthy and, like, women become more educated and they become more free and autonomous, people start having less children and they have them later in life. And so it creates like these negative population growth. But some people think that because there's so many people concentrated in these countries right now, that negative population growth will begin to like tip off like the population growth globally.
Oh God,
and then
yes.
it'll start to decline severely.
Think about sex robots being introduced into
Right.
that kind of an atmosphere.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
And I
And
mean,
we
that's
were
the
talking
whole
about-
reason that people are worried about Social Security right now is because there's a gap in between, like, once, like, the baby boomers are all going to die soon. I mean,
Well, shout out to the baby boomers.
technically speaking.
You guys are living big out
Yeah,
there.
I'm not trying to shit on
Hey,
you guys. I'm
we're
just
just
saying.
saying, three averagely intelligent dudes. We definitely condone
They will be
living
the
past
soonest
65.
They will be the soonest dying, and then there's going to be a gap in between, because of a lot of cultural reasons as well, there's going to be a gap in between people who are collecting Social Security and people who are paying, old enough to be working and paying into Social Security,
Facts.
and it's going to run out of money.
Yeah.
And it's
we're
like,
making YouTube money now. So it's
right,
like,
and so it's like, well, does
Yeah,
that, you
watch
know,
out.
like,
Yeah.
it's not really
Yeah.
taxed the same
Yeah,
way.
it's
So
not the same. We
and
ain't
you
really
know, like
paying
a
in
lot of
like
people
y'all
are
are.
making freelance money and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
So
just
like
different.
none of that's getting
And
taxed.
obviously, I don't understand all of it very well, but it's like
Obviously.
if they showed up tomorrow and were like, yeah, we had Social Security and it was in the stock market and things exploded and now the Federal Reserve has decided to burr. I'd be like, oh, that sounds really official.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'd be like, oh, all of it's gone?
They're going to juice it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, something like buy
Yeah.
bail bonds to
Yeah.
secure the Social Security, you know, like some crazy
We're going to
thing.
dump
Like,
$3 trillion into Social
Jeff
Security.
Bezos he's dedicated every dollar you give. He's going to
Yeah.
give a pair of Tom shoes to an African shoemaker.
This is gonna be great, people. I'm telling you.
For Social Security.
This is really gonna help.
Yeah. Facts.
And at the same time, it's like two birds, one stone. We get Social Security, they
Yeah.
can choose.
Yeah,
Everybody loves it.
tripping.
But I'm just saying, like,
But there's a gap though.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, with those things, like, they could always go away. Like that
Yeah.
idea of like, oh, we're buying into this. We have this retirement fund for old people
Dude.
because they've paid their whole life into this thing, and it's like,
The baby boomers are the first generation to actually use the 401k.
Right.
Like that's crazy that we don't even realize that. Like
It hasn't even. It's
people have
barely
never
lasted
retired.
one. It's barely lasted one run. One go
dude,
They're
round.
just
all
now
these
having to pay
programs
it.
like you're talking
Yeah.
about are just they're new. They're not
Bro.
as like
They're
And
not
if
as
you-
old as people think.
and well established. as people think
details
they are.
of those 401ks and shit are crazy.
It's not as good as people.
These
think it
motherfuckers
is.
be like, oh yeah, oh well, when you retire, you get this amount, or you
Yeah.
can get this little bit more, but then your kids don't get it,
Yeah, yeah,
or you
yeah.
get this little bit more,
tax this way.
or nobody, like, it's just it dies when you die, it stops. Or you can get this little bit. If you want to get this little bit, then everybody gets it. Family lives on with your
Dude,
401k
I
pension.
highly
and-
recommend the book Money Master the
crazy.
Game by
Mm.
Tony Robbins, and he talks a lot about this 401k issue and stuff, and about just like how it just different ways you might not know how it works, and
Right.
If you
it
pay
could be
into it your
fucking you.
whole life,
Yeah.
bro, and then you retire, and before you get your first paycheck, like you die, then it's like, what happened to all the?
And it's like the pension people got stiffed all the time. It's like you retire, you thinking I'm about to get this pension, and all of a sudden your shit go belly up. They're like, no pension, sorry, and you're like, what? what happened? What? No. Yeah. So I mean,
So when we talk about Social Security, I just think of it like that. I think of it like this.
Like it's just gonna.
This thing that may never affect me because our world may be run into the ground by clowns and buffoonery.
By then you'll be eating crickets.
Everyone's gonna be eating crickets.